So welcome along to the Gathering Heritage Project. We're continuing our Growing Up in Dundalk series. We've got three good guests this week, and I'm going to hand you over to Harry Lee.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Jason. And yes, we have three very, very special hand-picked guests to do the program today. And what the idea is that each of the three guests, they pick 4 photographs that will bring back great memories of growing up in Dundalk, which is the name of the project we're doing. And the three guests that we have is Tony O'Kane, Regina Nicholson, and Frank McAlevey. The three of you are very, very welcome.
Thanks, Harry.
Say thank you. Now, what we're going to do is, Tony, your first photograph is ready to go up now. Jason, by the way, is running the place from the computer, and he will be telling us each person gets about 3 minutes to talk about the photograph. Now, this, Tony, explain to me what this is.
Harry, it's the bandstand in the park where I spent an awful lot of my youth and growing up. I was born and reared in Chapel Street. And in the 50s, there was no television or anything like the gadgets they have nowadays. So we spent most of our leisure time here in the park, playing football, climbing trees.
In the bandstand, what did you do in it, Tony?
The bandstand was relatively, it was never ever used for anything, only to shelter from the rain when all the years we were there. That's it. I never saw a display or a band or anything on it, or can never recall one until much later years when the brass band used to do stints in it, you know.
Tony, and I'm going to say this, and I hope Jason doesn't mind, but we are talking about the bandstand, and just, I know this is probably out of order, but Jimmy Faulkner died today.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
And I'm sure, we know that Jimmy was the conductor of the Dundalk Brass Band, and it would be wrong of me for you to mention it and me not to say it to him. Anyway, Tony.
I'm very sorry to hear that, because I played with Jimmy and Bernie Bingham in the bands there for years.
Okay. What else did you do down there in the park?
Well, the one big attraction in the park at that time, there was an island just between the park and the football league's pitch there, and we used to have great fun in that island because it was surrounded by water when the tide came in, and it was like a little part of the jungle. There was trees and bushes and shrubs in it, and you could hide in it and you could build tents in it and everything. The only drawback was when the tide was in, you had to take off your shoes and hold them above you. The tide was up to about maybe above your knees. But when the tide went out, the muck just reappeared again. But that was filled in subsequently in the years when they developed the park and the development of the football pitch there next door.
And it's still there, and there's still a lot of people using it, Tony.
Yeah, but the little island is gone now. That was all filled in, Harry.
Yeah.
That island was part of the park at that time.
Okay, we'll move you on to the next one, Tony.
Yeah, the next one, Tony, is, of course, the Adelphi, and I knew Tony would probably pick something like this. Tony, your great memories of the Adelphi.
Well, the Adelphi was the mecca for us growing up because it was pictures. That was your only outlet at that time was to go to the pictures. And, of course, in the weekends they had shows at matinees in the afternoon. At night they had showings at 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock. And practically we'd go to the pictures, a lot of us from the street, especially to the matinees on the weekend. But then as I got a wee bit older, we'd go to the pictures at night. But it was just a mecca.
Tony, don't forget the double seats, Tony.
Well, the double seats, yeah. Well, I was a bit older when I got to the double seats, and I didn't know what to do at that time,
Okay, we'll keep it going.
But it was a great adventure, the Adelphi, yeah.
Yeah, this Tony, immediately I saw this, I remember being at this, but tell of yours what this is.
Oh, this is the athletic grounds, the carnivals. Absolutely brilliant time for us because we were in Chapel Street, very adjacent to them. And we would be there when they'd be setting up and taking down their equipment, And I had a great affinity with the athletic grounds, with all the sports days and the Mars there playing football there in the school finals. But one of the stories I remember mostly about the carnival there was there was two guys from Africa, and they were jumping on hot coals and broken bottles, etc. But when the carnival packed up and left, we went round the next morning and we were rummaging about, and we found a lot of what we thought were the broken bottles that they were jumping on, but they turned out they were all frozen glass, you know. And we found the firelighters that they were burning their arms and their legs with. So we got the remnants of them, and we thought we were brilliant. But great memories there.
You can see him there on the motorbike before he goes up. Oh, that's
I think that was Ronnie Roslin.
Oh God!
No.
Right,
Tony,
I'm going to keep it going to the next one.
Okay, right. Oh God, yeah.
Oh, Woolworths, brilliant! What a shop! Yeah. Before I started dating Dibna, her sister Deirdre worked in there on the biscuit counter. And sure, we'd go in with a few boys from the street, and Deirdre would pass out some of the broken biscuits to us there when we'd be walking around. But it was a brilliant shop. Ice cream there, and fantastic shop at the time. And it was awful sorry to see it go.
Yeah, and the girls were standing up on some kind of a petition at the back.
That's right. They were standing up above us, and they had a sort of a white hat. Like something like a nun's veil. But great times in it. What a shop, yeah. And Leverton Fries beside us.
Yeah, in Leverton Fries, we often talk about that. Like, that was a great shop.
Brilliant shop, absolutely. Stuff in it there you'd never even see in shops today. Yeah, it was.
We never could afford to go into it, though.
No, nobody could afford that. I think only the gentry in town could afford the shop there, Harry.
Yeah. But Woolworths, Margaret Barry, of course, standing outside Woolworths. Tony, you remember?
That's right, Margaret Barry there. Yeah, for years. I remember her all right. But great memories of Woolworths and being young in Dundalk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're very welcome, Regina.
Thank you, Harry.
And this is she'll add a wee bit of class now to the programme today. Regina, some of these photographs are absolutely brilliant. Tell us a little bit about this one here. I just love the story about this picture.
This is the street I grew up in Beachmount Drive. We used to call it Lower Ardesman instead of Cox's. But we used to, it's the second square as you come in from Ardesman into Cox's Domain. It's the second street in Beachmount Drive. But we always called it the first square because we always reckoned we were the best square. And we used to have, there'd be great crack between the ones around the corner, not to be territorial, you know, we'd be the best street in town. And funny enough, our street is actually 50 years old this year. And we were supposed to have a party there on the 31st of May, but because of COVID, we had to cancel it. But this is a lockdown.
What's the chairs in the middle of the road?
These three benches were built when the street was built. And they've been there ever since. Over time, people have come out and painted them. And then when they got so bad, they actually got the council to come down and replace the wood. But they've always, over the years, there'd be mothers sitting there with their kids. There'd be kids sitting there. We played rounders from there. You'd stood in the middle of the benches and you'd whack the ball up the street before all the cars, obviously, because...
I tell you one thing, you were rich down there. Look at all the cars.
Oh, well, this is actually taken just a couple of weeks ago. They had a lockdown bingo session. Do you know what I mean? So this is all the street, all the neighbours are...
I was going to ask you which is the big cars is yours.
No. See the car there with the speaker on it? That's my brother's car. He still lives
the one
in
at the bottom. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's our home house there beside the pole with the red bricks and all the hedges and stuff. And my brother Kevin still lives there.
You've great memories from down there, Regina.
The crack. Now, the street has been completely done up since, all these houses were done up in 1988 with the pebble dash fronts. Before that, they were just wooden. And they'd all these little tiny wooden fences. And we spent our days going from one end of the street and we hopped every single fence. And all you could hear was, you know what I mean? Everybody, get out, my God, get out. And we just would have a ball.
Okay,
I need to move.
I need to move you on.
Right, the next one now is the Friary School, of course.
We were the only family.
This is my school, you see.
Yeah. Well, my dad's family went to the Friary, so I went to the Friary, and my kids went to the Friary. But one of the main reasons we were at the Friary was because when we moved into Beachmount, the Redeemer School wasn't built. So my older brother, my older two brothers and sister were already at the Friary. So when I came along, I was sent to the Friary. So we used to get fierce, like, what are you doing at the Friary? You should be at the Redeemer. And but now I love the Friary. It's the history of it, the fact that my dad was at it, the sports days, the sale of works. It's just, it's never changed, even though.
Yeah, and Tina, that, or Regina, that front there that was the new school that was built when I was just leaving the old school. I was in the old school, and I think it was around the 50s that they built all of that new stuff there. But it was it wasn't a very cruel school or anything. Like, most of the teachers were brilliant.
No, like the only when I was there in the junior side was Miss McCann, bless her. But you'd hear her before you'd see her, and so you knew not to misbehave, because she had a nice way of punishing the boys and the girls. Wouldn't get away with it now, though.
Careful now, careful.
I know I wouldn't never say anything bad at all. But we had great crack in that school, and then we got to know. I was in the choir then in the Friary Church, so we got on great.
You had great affinity then for the Friary and the church.
I love the Friary Church. Now, you know, I'm not really into churches, but if I had to go to a church, I would prefer to go to the Friary now. And
there was a lovely hall. Yeah, and Tina, Regina, there was a lovely hall, of course, there. At one time, it was a brilliant, hold about 500 people in it, and it was slanted.
The wee Rosary Centre or the actual community centre?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I know I used to do Irish dancing then where it is the Rosary Centre now, but they had a stage and everything in there before they built the big hall.
Now, can you remember or say it quickly? The writing that's in the top of it is what?
Scullen and Ashint and Niv Mal Madigog.
Yeah, that's the only bit of Irish I knew.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on, folks. We'll move on.
All right. Now, this is another one that
we used to.
I suppose Cuchulains, we all have memories, different memories of. I dread to think what Regina is going to tell us about.
All great memories from the street. The parents, the mammies, should I say, would gather. There'd be 20 or 30 kids, and we go walking across the fields, which is now full of houses, up to Cuchulains Castle. And we were only wee small things, and we thought we were miles away from home. And we'd all go up there and we'd spend the day up there. We'd have picnics. There'd be swings hanging from the trees. We'd play tig round the mount, and then you'd be see where that path is. We used to slide up and down that path. Yeah. And it was like a playground for us. It was just like when Regina, we went up.
Is there a pity that they haven't done something where, I mean, it's hidden, no one goes ever. Visitors to the town don't even know it exists up there.
They're starting to pick up again now. People are going back up and down to it. They have done it up now. It's lovely up there. But they closed all the tunnels. Like when we used to go up to it, you could go inside it. There was tunnels down below on the way up. They had to block all them in because there was a few tragedies over the years.
Now you're going to tell us the history of it, aren't you?
Do you know, I don't really know much. I honestly thought Cuchulainn lived there, and in my head he did. And nobody's going to tell me different.
That Cuchulainn lived there.
Yeah, that was his house, and he lived there, and it was his dog that made that path around there. That's in my head. Never leaves.
Tell you one thing, it's a hell of a narrow house, isn't it?
Yeah, but he was a tall man.
We'll move it on. The last one, Regina.
Right. Now, this is a strange one for Regina. Eyre Street and at the Square, but that's not. Tell us the reason you picked this.
I love Eyre Street because I went from a very innocent young girl to a very wise person. And it's due to the fact that I used to go into the Eyre Inn. And I'm
afraid to say anything.
No, I always thought I was shy and quiet, and then in the Eyre Inn I discovered I was quite a performer. Because Porter Keane owned the Eyre Inn when I was going up and down to it, and he'd have these competitions, and he had a beauty competition one week, and I decided I'd enter, and I sat in the bar with this bikini in my hand telling everybody that I was going to wear this bikini. And they all couldn't wait. So when it started the competition, they announced me, and out I came with a face mask on, rollers in my hair, a flannelette night dress, my father's slippers, these big hairy woolly socks, one up over me knee and the other one down, blue night coat, and I sang "You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling." And that was the first time I realised that I was a bit of a lunatic when it came to out socialising.
And you haven't stopped since, Regina.
And it just, but before that, I was like, oh no, I couldn't.
Okay. We're going to have to move it on. Thanks, Regina.
Yes,
No problem.
indeed. A pity we couldn't have gone into that a bit deeper. We'll take her out some other time. Frank McAlevey. Frank, you're very, very welcome. And Frank, have you any queer stories like that to tell us from this photograph?
No, I'm innocent as a driven snow, Harry.
You were
right-hand corner there in that photograph.
Yeah.
That's Park around 1968, and that's I think that's myself there, right on, Jason. Yeah, and yeah, that's where we grew up. I was moved there from the Quay.
Is that Father Murray Park?
That's Father Murray Park, the middle street. Yeah. Yeah, not with the rough ones around at the railway line, you know, all the nice people in the middle street. And that's, we've got Derek Carr, we've got Ida English and Pat Bell, and I can't name all of them because I don't recognise them all, but, you know, yeah, it was a lovely upbringing down there, knowing all the neighbours and stuff. Yeah. And we moved there, first 4 years in Barrack Street, and then for the rest of my life until I got married in Father. So
we're going to have to move you on, Frank. Sorry, we're running out of time.
Now, this is an unusual too, because we've already done one of these on another program, but Frank said no, he wanted Bridge Street in it. Why?
Well, Bridge Street, and it was very recent. Only last week I went to a funeral of a friend's mum, and Kathleen McGuire, God rest her, passed away. And I walked down Bridge Street for the first time in maybe 30 years, and it flooded. The memories flooded back from growing up. My dad worked in MJ's and Grinnell's and Peggy Carroll's and all the shops, and I was very reminiscent of the times there, you know. So that's why I had Bridge Street in there. You know,
doesn't it show, Frank, that you're better the odd time you're better off taking a walk down the town rather than drive, isn't it?
100%, Harry. Yeah, absolutely.
So St. Nicholas's Church, of course, would have been your church.
Of course, yeah. That's what would have, you know, 11 o'clock mass on the Sunday, and then visit the granny down the Quay after 11 mass, and then. Right. Yeah, the dad would go in for a pint into MJ's, then before going home for the lunch. So that was
cool. We'll keep you moving, Frank. Sorry.
Lovely.
Right. Now this is something that I when Jason showed me this one, I was saying, what's Frank doing there? He hasn't got a house down there, or has he? No. Carlingford.
I'll tell you, Carlingford Loch, Harry. I went over to Canada as a young fella for 2 months when I was 15, and I saw the Rocky Mountains before I saw Carlingford Loch. I'll tell you. When I worked in HF and J McCann's, I used to do relief driving, and Frank McCartan, God rest him, would be taking his holidays, and he drove me over the mast, and I'd never been beyond the mast. I was only up cutting turf once with my uncle, and my eyes nearly popped out of my head when I saw the vision that was Carlingford Loch, and I was.
Well, Frank, can you tell me where the camera was to take all that? Is that the buildings down on the left?
That photograph, that's from Flagstaff, I think.
Oh, you know, right. Oh, yeah, there's a good photograph.
Frank, we'll move you to the last one. Sorry, buddy, just run out of time.
No, this is one, of course, Frank, that we've already told me that you were the only person with a camera when this was taken, 1990.
Harry, yeah. I got engaged the year before, and I bought herself a ring, and she bought me a camera. So, Italia 90, we were watching all the games downstairs in the tower in the mine shaft, and I used to take the camera down every night and for the football games and round to the square, and that's where I captured all those photographs.
And Frank, was that taken just during the competition or coming towards the end?
After each of Ireland's games, everyone would head round to the square for a bit of crack. The fountains were off, and we all climbed up onto the fountain and celebrating the win, lose or draw, whatever it was, you know. And I just took the camera down each night, and I captured some really good